Okay, at this time I'd like to call to order the North Canton Committee of the Whole meeting, 7 p.m., June 7th. Ben, please call the roll.
Member Revolt.
Present.
Member Fonte.
Here.
Member Sheretta.
Here.
Member Peters.
Here.
Member Foltz.
Here.
Member Warren.
Here.
Member Stroyo.
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you very much. First up, Community and Economic Development Committee, Chairman Revolt. Floor is yours.
I would direct your attention to page 3 of our packet. Mr. Fonte has asked us to consider raising the height of poles. These are the poles that are used for parking lot illumination. Raising it from 20 to 30 feet where an LED light is being used. I don't think there's an issue. Marty is here. Marty, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'll just ask a real simple question. Is there any reason we shouldn't do it? Not well.
The red light should be on.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
There we go, thank you. I think there's a bit to discuss on this. I mean, there's pros and cons both ways.
Okay, let's walk through the cons.
Okay. Some of the cons are going to be the other lighting regulations. It will make it a bit more difficult to get the 30-foot light poles into compliance with the glare, the trespass of the light at the property line. There's other regulations in the zoning code that limits the light trespass to 0.5 foot candles at the property line. With 30-foot light poles, they're presumably wanting to reduce the number of light standards in a parking lot, thereby requiring the intensity of the light to be increased. The LEDs that they have currently are highly efficient, high efficacy lighting. They are also high intensity as well. So the glare on those does travel much further than the cast of the light itself. With that, there are regulations in the zoning code that also address the glare. So to mitigate that glare to adjoining properties, you're going to see an increase in that potential of glare off the property, essentially.
And you call that trespass?
That's part of the trespass, right?
Okay.
So there's a measurable part of the trespass. That's that cast of the light, the foot candles. The glare, I don't know of how you would measure the glare other than if you see it, it's present. There's no point.
Okay. So, looking at our geography, where we would have this kind of lighting, how many instances can you think of where, I'm driving Main Street right now, and I'm also out at Walsh and Washington Square. How much trespass would we have into truly residential neighborhoods from this kind of lighting?
I don't recall how tall the buildings are, particularly at Washington Square. I mean, that is one of the other concerns we would have is with the taller light standards, we have the potential of projecting that glare over the building, where many of the buildings in Washington Square, particularly at 20 feet, the buildings will shield the residential uses to the north from any glare there. With 30 foot, I don't know, where that glare would be in relation to the buildings and the residential use behind Washington Square. Another area to look at is, we do have Acme Plaza where that sits below Main Street. So that might not be as much of an impact on some of that glare, particularly with the downcast light. And this ordinance does address or require downcast type of lighting to, also mitigate any light pollution above to, so it doesn't drown out the stars and so forth. But that might not be as big of an impact there. I mean, I guess in looking at this, initially I did have more concern with it, but as I read through and I'm reminded of some of the other zoning regulations that are in here, we do have some stop gaps, if you would, to help keep this from being, the 30-foot from being too intrusive to adjoining properties. But the challenge may be, if they're not reading the ordinance and some of these details, that they're, just going with the 30-foot. But kind of getting to that as well, most of the commercial properties do a photometric study to show what type of lighting, the spacing, and the intensity of the lighting. So, theoretically, we can get fairly close with the design, provided they're submitting a photometric with their plans.
Do you know what the ROI would be on a reinstallation? Obviously, you'd have the cost of a pole, wiring, installation, etc. How quickly could a property owner recover his investment if he went from 20 to 30? Do you have any say? Is there any? I don't know. It's a question I may not be fair. I don't know.
I suspect, given the supply shortages, that margin is going to be considerably more now than it was, say, last year. I don't have a specific number, but
I guess my question is this: you would not anticipate property owners rushing out to reinstall light poles and new lighting. I would not, given the cost. And I don't know what the cost is, but I just can't imagine that property owners are going to be inclined to scrap an existing 20-foot pole and stick a 30 up with a new light. And we're going to see a lot of that along Main Street. Would that be a safe guess? Or, I mean, you see people permitting all the time, so.
I suspect that's a fair assessment.
Okay. Okay.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what is the reason for the change? Why don't we start there?
How about, was my suggestion.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay,
Well, just before we go on here,
Yeah.
explain it very simply. Mr. Fonte asked that this matter be brought to the floor of council for discussion.
Okay.
And that is exactly why it's here.
thank you for letting me explain. So 3 years ago, it was I think 2018, there was a planning zoning meeting about Acme renovating the front, the same time McDonald's was doing it, the same time we were doing other projects, and the same time PAVS was trying to come. And so this is what struck the whole thing with the MSB, because we were trying to figure out ways to have maybe exceptions where we could, in certain situations be able to do that. And to my recollection, Acme had 20-foot poles, but in Green, in Maslin Road, their new plaza, they have 30-foot poles, which we went and looked at. And the way the downlighting is by going 10 feet higher on a commercial atmosphere, not residential. So in the backside of the parking lot, you wouldn't use it. You would stick with 20s on the front where it's commercial to commercial. You could go to 30 if you want. So in this particular case, it would have saved them about $85,000 in lighting, cut costs because of the economics and because of the energy consumption, and also, beautify the town. Now, at the time, I wasn't understanding it, so I made a trip 3 years ago up to Green, and I saw the poles. You saw them too, correct? Did anybody go up to Green and see the poles?
I did.
Who did? Do you guys know what I'm talking about that actually visualized it? So basically, my envision was, say like the Kmart building, if something comes there, that's commercial, right? And then across the street is commercial, the whole front end of that along Main Street, and it's projecting down. It's not like our street lights that create light pollution where it's all up and all down. My whole vision is that, you want to protect light pollution, so you don't want it going up, you want it coming straight down. And with the technology, you can do that now. And if you want to see for yourself, take a run up to the Maslin Road Acme, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So the backside of Acme would be Versailles Gardens and residential. So of course, if it was there, it could potentially intrude on their space. So my thinking is that if you're in a commercial atmosphere where it's commercial to commercial, that would make more sense, and it would also help the business owner who are trying to help generate more revenue for them, which in turn creates more revenue for the city, right? Instead of the backs of us as the working stiffs. So my point is that as the evolution of technology changes, we need to shift gears with that change. And I feel very confident if it's used in the application. So just if everybody goes out and starts putting up 30-foot poles, that would be a problem. I don't see that happening. It would be more commercial to commercial to commercial when they're doing renovation jobs or adding new product, you know. So if you're backing up to residential, then the 20-foot pole still should be in effect. Because you don't, or unless they use a special lighting, it's even like the stadium lighting now. So the technology is so good, they can focus it on what areas they want to hit. And so it's not like what we've been used to when these were written up in '03 or whatever year these were, you know, originally drafted. So that was how this all started for me. And then I went to Patrick and I went to the law director and I said, look, you know, can we make some exceptions? So then that's how this whole thing started with MSB, is to try to activate something. And then once we started doing it, Pat's looking and says, you know what, Dom, this is a Band-Aid approach. Let's scrap the whole thing and let's just do a total revamp. And that's what we've been doing since 2018. Is that correct, Pat?
That's correct.
So that's why. It's to help the business owners, to help the energy, help create, you know, like flexibility zones so that we can do what we want to do, to have businesses strive, thrive, and create more opportunities that we're going to help our little 6-mile radius. That's the bottom line.
Mark? Go.
That was my question.
Okay.
Did I answer it? Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. As I was thinking about this, and Dom actually threw out a noun or two that gave me an idea, and I would pitch this to the administration or to Marty. We have 5 districts on Main Street. All right? We're concerned, I think we would all be concerned about light trespass because of the proximity, particularly in 4 of those 5 districts. We would be really concerned because the residential neighborhoods are so close. Is that a fair assumption? Yeah. Okay. Why don't we do this? Allow it in the Main Street North Gateway. All right. Go to 30. All right. Everybody else stays 20. And if you're out on the east side of town, maybe we create a new zoning district, the University District or something down the road. That could be a chore for somebody else, task. But make it a conditional use out there. You know, I could see, for example, Walsh wishing to reduce its utility costs. They might want to consider that. And then, you know, we would have a conditional use, planning commission would look at, you would have some light analysis, et cetera. And again, it would, don't really have a, except to the east probably, and maybe some to the south, you probably don't have a whole lot of concern about light bleed.
No. Here, another question. You're on that same subject. What happens if
Microphone.
It's right here.
what happens when the new schools go in? Maybe they'll want to put those in.
If it's residential.
Well, I think if you're residential, I think we've got to maybe draw the line.
Right. Yeah. If you think that, if Marty
Yeah,
thinks that's an issue around the residential.
I think it is a I think it is, because Doug,
Yeah,
I have been to your happy ward at night.
Okay. You have that?
Well, we have it with a church that abuts a residential
Yes.
property owner, and there's light trespass and glare that's been brought to my attention, and I've had some discussions with that church, and it's unfortunate because it really bothers her. You know, it's just in the right proximity. Now, I don't think they're 30 feet tall, but maybe that'd be worse. I don't know in that case, because it would actually be higher than the landscaping trees in their backyard. So that would be a concern. I think you got to watch where it abuts up to R50, R70.
I agree with that. What I was getting at was, you know, in general, it's a common sense approach, but I know when you have the rules, people want to squeeze the rules. So maybe Daryl, he's on to something where we do North Gate, or was it North Gate, or what do you call the North
Gateway.
North Gateway zoning, because that's really where it prompted my interest. And, you know, even at the church, you know, they use mercury lights, high-pressure sodium lights. So, you know, as people are upgrading their product line, as they afford, they're switching to much better technology. And honestly, you don't want the light pollution, even like our street lighting, in Walsh and everything, we have that open cast or that open plastic lid or whatever it is. So you're getting all kinds of light pollution. I mean, I guess if you had a magic wand, Gina, if you had a magic wand, we would probably have it down, shoot instead of glaring everything. But I mean, it's pretty and it has a charming look. It's just, I don't really like light pollution. I haven't seen any stars in a while. That's just me.
My question was, what does the school use, the North Campus, Hoover? Do we know what the height is on their lamps?
Roger Miller is our building inspector. He's in the audience here. He may be familiar with that if we can bring him up to the podium.
Sure. Hi, Roger.
Good evening, Roger Miller, City of North Canton Safe Field Building Electrical Inspector, and also take care of zoning. So the church we're speaking of, I've been there. I've been to the Hoover Company. I've been to Walsh College. I've been to Washington Square, and I think it's a mistake to raise the poles above 25 feet. For one reason is the technology has changed. Now, I've done lighting for the last 30 years at University of Akron, including converting their parking lots from high-pressure sodium, low-pressure sodium, to metal halide for energy efficiency. The LEDs we're seeing today have immensely changed in the last 10 years. I've also done football field lighting, baseball field lighting with Muzak, both metal halide and LED, and that's what we've got going in up at Malone College around there. They're going to do a full Muzak LED system. The one thing that I'm concerned about is you're not addressing the pole base. Today, we don't pour our bases. Today, we buy our bases pre-poured to spec. We drill a hole, we drop them in the ground, we set our pole on top of that. At no point are you even addressing the above finished grade height of the pole. So if I'm buying 10-foot precast base, I bury them 5 feet, I'm 5 feet, put a 25-foot pole, I'm at 30 feet. I'd like to see a stay at 20 to 25 feet range with the exception. If you can provide photometric design from an engineer to show you will not violate dark sky, you will not impede and splash light onto adjacent properties, commercial or residential, or our streetscapes, I think that's a wiser way to go. Limit it to keep it nice, but then allow an engineer comes in from Acme and says, hey, we can do this. We're gonna save $96,000. That's awesome. You know what? You put in 10 more poles at 25 feet, cost you $40,000, you still save $55,000. So we're assisting our business. We're helping them find a way, but we're also helping our community. The biggest complaint we have is if you stand in a parking lot and look at a light, you're glared. Whether it's dark sky, whether it's got a back shield on it, and that's what the lady we have up at the church is. She stands in her backyard and she looks at the light and she has glare. I can't stop it. I've been up there 4 times with a light meter at 9 o'clock at night. And for every complaint I've had on that church, I've had other people say, thank you for the light, it's safer. I don't worry about my kids being in a parking lot. I don't have the high school kids up there playing at night. So there's benefits to having lighting. For every complaint we get, so many times we don't get the thank you. Many times people complain before they say thanks. I think UPS will tell you 10% of their complaints are complaints, not accolades. So I'd like to see us stay at the 25 feet, make sure we limit that as an above grade, finished grade measurement, so that we allow for the bases.
Roger, I got a question. Did you by chance get a chance to go up to Green, Maslin Road, or if you didn't, would you?
I've been up there, yes, sir.
Did you see what I'm talking about, those
Yes,
3-foot
sir.
poles? What do you think of those?
I think it's very attractive in the commercial atmosphere. There's no residential there whatsoever.
That's right. So that's why I was kind of thinking I get what you're saying in the majority of the city, but I was just thinking like the north part, especially since it's commercial to commercial.
I don't think I don't know what's gonna happen with technology, but it keeps getting better. So I think we stay at the 25 feet, including our bases, and then if somebody comes back with a 32-foot pole, a 35-foot pole, a 40-foot, a 60-foot, that will do the job with engineering standards that we can stand behind, and let them vary it, and let our residents say, it sounds good, but not good enough to be true. That's who we're here to serve, is our residents. That's really what it's about, and that's where our complaints come from. Somebody says, I don't really like that. We go up and check it. If it works, I've had the Hoover Company calls on that. I mean, we get a lot of them, and that's what we're here for. That's our job. We're here to serve our constituents.
Hey, Roger, you bring up the base, and that was the question I was asking at the Hoover High School. Are those 25 feet from ground to the top?
27 to 29 feet.
Okay, that's what I thought, because those bases are about 3.5 foot. Okay, so that's what you were talking about.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Because that base, now, we use those same bases at Walsh College for the new outfield protection, and they bought 10s, they drilled 5, set them. They're 4 to 5 feet above grade. And the reason they did that was so they could get a zero plane all the way across so that fence would be uniform. So some are 2, some are 3, some are 4. You could have the same thing in a parking lot area where they want to have a uniform standard to the top. But if we don't, we need to address also not only the pole, we need to address the base of the pole if they're using a pre-drill. And we don't do cast to ground anymore because the poles rust off. That's why we've raised them.
Right.
Also, parking bumpers. Yeah, you hit it with your bumper, you're not going to snap a pole, you're going to bite your bumper.
It would be crash control and salt control.
Exactly.
So I understand why, and that makes sense. So I can see if it's a 5 foot, but I guess I was just saying is I think not in all cases, but like certain cases, I thought it would be acceptable. And it made sense to me when I saw the lighting, because I'm in the business where I see it a lot too.
And you're going to see it. If you have a 25-foot pole on a 2 to 3 foot base, you're 28 feet.
Right. Yeah, I was just mainly, even though we worry about the residents, I'm one of them too.
Yeah.
I just also am an entrepreneur, and I think about businesses because I've heard it so many times that they don't think we're cooperative with them. We're making it harder for them to earn a living, and we have enough complications. So I just want to have things more consistent, and can we work in certain areas that have flexibility instead of just saying, nope, can't do it.
And I will tell you this, when I do write a denial for any zoning, the very first thing I tell that resident or that business, you have the right to appeal my decision. In fact, I encourage them to go talk to Marty. We'll see if it does have merit. We push that. We don't just say, this is it, walk away. So I think with the variance procedure, I don't mean to throw more on the board or on council, but I think with the variance procedure we have, which I think works very, very well, that we follow that because it gives our residents surrounding that property definite input.
Do it as a variance?
Pardon me?
Do it as a variance?
Anything over the 25 feet, I would recommend they come before a planning for variance request.
All right, let me, don't sit down.
Okay.
Let me summarize this, and let's see if we've got some consensus, all right? What I'm hearing is we should confine this proposal to the North Main Street Gateway because we have limited residential areas surrounding it, A. B is, the recommendation from our inspector is that the poles not exceed 25 feet, including the base. That is his recommendation. However, if a property owner wishes to go to 30 and no more than 30, that would be granted by variance. Fair summary?
With engineering, not just
With the
willy-nilly.
requisite engineering. So we're responsive to the businesses. We're protecting everybody else along Main Street where you really don't need a 30-foot light pole or a 25-foot pole. Okay.
I would suggest we grandfather poles that are already Hoover High School in
Well, they're in.
particular.
We won't go after them.
And please,
Actually, I fall in that category. We like those lights. My backyard is right up against that. We like those lights.
and if you're going to do that, would you do me one very small caveat? Don't call it grandfather. That doesn't exist. Existing approved may remain.
Okay.
It's very important because when you grandfather, I was done at the same time. You may not have done it to plan. You may not have been approved. Maybe we need to look at what you've done. So if you'll use that verbiage, Marty, you agree with that? Existing and approved, they stand as is.
Did you say existing unapproved, existing approved? What did you say?
Existing and approved.
So if it was put in and we didn't have all our systems in place like we do now, it may not have got paperwork. And I know many cases like that.
I'll do a file search if I find something that doesn't support it. I'll talk about it, but if we don't have support that says it wasn't approved, we typically accept it as existing.
Got it.
We don't look for trouble. We really don't. We really want to see things happen.
Okay. All right, Marty? Confine it to North Gateway, 25 feet, including the base. can go to 30 max with a variance. Mr. Stroya?
Sounds fair to me.
Mrs. Waring?
Good,
Mr.
we're still trying to
Foltz.
figure out the church
Well,
property.
I understand that.
Does
Everybody else good on the same?
Does the church use, what kind of lighting does the church use?
Church use LED.
Is it some old LED, new LED? Do you
No,
know?
actually, I'm not sure the brand name, but we pulled the photometrics on it. We did I did a calculation with height. The church did it themselves to try and save some money. We did get permits on that, but it's just the fact that where those lights are, it has tons of screening around it. It's 1.5 at the corners. I mean, I found one that splashed. We asked them to change it. Boom, they changed it immediately for us. So it is new LED technology.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark, are you good?
As long as, we make sure we follow his rule. I like the idea also, anybody else, just go to get a variance. Go through the whole process, as you
Yeah.
said.
Oh, yeah.
And let's open that up, we shouldn't be just pigeonholing it to certain areas. If there is one that
Well-
makes sense, let's go get a variance.
Do you want, let me just ask, do you want the council to open the variance up on the other 4 Main Street, throughout the other zoning areas and GBA, everything that's GBA, GBB? 'Cause that's really what we're talking about.
Patrick?
Mr. Chair, I would say that anything that is written into the zoning can be appealed to the zoning board of appeals for a variance. I mean, you don't have to specifically write it that you have the right to go get a variance. You have the right to get a variance. You don't need it granted. It exists by right. So if you're permitting it in the North Gateway,
Right.
any place else, it's not specifically permitted, but you can seek a variance from the ZBA concerning that.
Listening to the conversation, what was impressed upon me is that in the North Gateway, we want those poles no higher than 30 feet, including the base. And the way you get from 25 to 30 is through a variance.
It would be better to make it conditional planning as opposed to a variance. So variance is you are asking for something that would be a contradiction to the written zoning law.
All right.
Conditional would be you're
Make it a
asking for
conditional- then we'll
special
make it a conditional
review
use.
beforehand.
Then it can be a conditional use. Okay, so we got 3 components.
To simplify that, sir, every one of my letters has on the bottom of the paragraph that states you have the right to request a variance. Everything, approved or unapproved or conditional or phased. That's on the bottom of each one. So it's like Pat's saying, we don't need to write it in there. It's how we do business.
Perfect. Okay, great conversation. Marty, anything to wrap up?
The conditional use would be the more appropriate
Okay.
route for that. That puts it before the planning commission. We have parameters which it would be reviewed.
Perfect. Okay, so
Thank
what
you.
we're going to do is we are going to send this to the planning commission, correct? With our recommendation, then an amendment be made.
Thank you.
Yeah, so next week we'll have a resolution for you
We'll have
guys
a
to send it
resolution
to
for a
the planning
vote.
commission.
Okay.
You are not only excused from the podium, but, because you and I are of a certain vintage, maybe you ought to go find the ghost of Strubles.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, just wander around a little bit.
I do appreciate your time hearing me. It's very kind of you. And like I said, although I don't live in the city of North Canton, I'm proud to be part of North Canton from here.
Well, what I particularly appreciate, and I think a lot of us, particularly some of the gray hairs, have been through a lot of discussions about zoning. But what I particularly appreciate is, as one listens carefully, is your technical understanding of what's really required about this lighting. And I truly appreciate that. And I think, Marty, again, this reflects the team that you've assembled. And it's just a very small but subtle example of the value that our relationship brings to the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Roger.
Strubles.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roger, for the input.
All righty. All right. Next up, Finance and Property, Chairwoman Ware.
Okay. In this one, we are looking at some additional appropriations for economic.
Microphone.
Yeah, microphone.
Better. one, we're looking at some additional appropriations for economic development, land and buildings related to the Main Street acquisition, and also the Kmart and surrounding properties for environmental assessments. Gina, is there anything else you want to talk about? It's about $115,000 in these appropriations.
Did we want to amend the request to include?
I didn't know if you wanted to do that separately or not. Sorry,
I think we need to.
amend it first?
We haven't had a reading yet, so we don't need to amend it. So just inform them of what you'd like to add.
We have an additional request for $64,450 from the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, and that's for a CAD RMS system to replace the current CMI authority system.
I don't know, Officer Kemp or Chief Kemp, would you want to come up and talk about that for a minute, or is that okay?
He's here.
He's here?
I can't deny the
What I
council.
love is that we're moving from kind of an individual system to a collective system. And Gino gave me some of your notes, and it will essentially pay for itself in a couple years. So if you could just explain that, I think that's really helpful.
Okay, first time being up here, so I don't know if I have to go Frank Kemp, Jr., Chief of Police, for the pleasant lady over here trying to make sure everybody's talking into the microphones, which is something I have to make sure I project my voice. What we're trying to do is we're trying to become part of the county system at this point in time. When the county first was exploring going to a computer-aided dispatch system, we were at a had-to-replace standpoint with the software we had at that point. That was 2011, 2012, when the mayor was still the chief. We stayed with CMI at that point because it was one cohesive product. We had a CAD system, we had a record management system. It all works together. While county, a couple years after we had updated our software, finally went to the CAD. So they've already done the heavy lifting on the CAD system, which they have 3 of the major centers are part of it. They share data, they share vehicle locating, portions of that on that product. They've now made the additional decision to go with a record management, jail management system that is by the same company. So in another year and a half down the road, when everything comes together, they will have a product that is a cohesive package, just like what we currently have. The benefit of moving forward at this point is we kind of break our training up for our personnel to move forward with the CAD right now, sign the agreement with the record management system, and on board with the record management system down the road when county and everything comes on. It's going to be a cloud-based system. We are 2.5 years into our current equipment, our current server in the back room. They last about 5 years. So we are looking at 2.5 years down the road having to replace a server. That's going to cost me about $40,000, $50,000. By going to this, by going cloud-based, we're going to be able to dispatch virtually from anywhere. As long as we have access to a radio and access to the internet, we can plug in and go to it. We're going to be pulling the fire department along with us with the mobile application that's part of this. There's going to be some bumps along the way, but we're going to work through them. It is something I believe strongly enough in that I'm willing to go to the trust fund to be able to allocate to pay for this.
Frank, can you also touch on who else is implementing this right now? You and I talked earlier about this.
Yeah, okay. Right now, Stark County did the heavy lifting on this contract. There was an article in it that they signed their contract at the very December 31st of last year when they came to an agreement with Tyler for their jail management, their record management system. Maslin Police Department is already under contract with the new company based upon the same discounts that the Stark County received. That was one of their requirements, that any other Stark County agencies also receive the same discounts. For us, it equates to about $1,000 per officer, so it's about $26,000 a discount to sign on with the company at this point. Jackson Township, I just learned today, that's also when I learned that we were under a shorter time frame than I expected, that they are under contract with Tyler for the new system. The benefits of becoming part of the system is that collaborativeness of it. We're going to be able to see the calls that are going on around us. So if we start getting 911 calls on Whipple, we'll already see, hey, Jackson Township already has a call up on this. They're aware of it. Sir, ma'am, did you see the accident? Did you see what happened? No, I didn't see it. Just traffic's backed up and I see that there's something going on. Okay, thank you very much for the information. The neighboring jurisdiction has somebody en route to that. We'll be able to tell that, and we'll be able to minimize that time that we're tied up on the phone with that person and not further burden the other department by transferring that phone call. If we're looking for, say, a person by the name of Jeremy Smith, when we're searching our database for Jeremy Smith, we wouldn't just be searching our database, we would be searching all the connected databases. So Masslin's database, Jackson's database, some of the most recent car break-ins or catalytic converter thefts. When our guys run a plate in the system, our system only shows us who else connected to our system has ran it. When we become part of the county system, we'll be able to see who else in Stark County ran that plate. So maybe Jackson ran that plate as a suspicious vehicle 2 nights before. Now we're running the plate again. We're going to be able to tie a correlation together that give us a little bit more justifiable cause, reasonable suspicion to make a stop and talk to the people in that vehicle. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good process. And I don't know a lot about this, but any difference between cyber attacks from one to the other? The newer ones now, the one we're going to here now compared to where you're at?
Cyber attacks are always, right now, we have our own server in our back room. But we still have a gateway that comes and goes from City Hall. We would still be using that same gateway to come into City Hall, and then from that, there would be a secure tunnel set up to whatever cloud-based system that we're connected to. Right now, we have a secure tunnel that's set up for us to be able to run leads data. That's all taken care of by AtNet. They lock down that system for us, and that would be a continued process. The other future benefit of this is the county prosecutor's office has a computer system that they want to be able to get data from us without having to do the hand-to-hand, carry the paperwork down to them, wait for it to show up. They want to do that. They're working on a grant for it, and the Sheriff's Office has already submitted the paperwork for the conversion application for that program. So going to the future, any additions to the software that the Sheriff's Office does, all the rest of the agencies that are part of this automatically benefit from it without any additional upfront costs out of pocket for us.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Frank.
Very
Thanks,
good.
Chief.
Great information. Okay. Patrick, did you want to talk about any of the other additional costs, or are we good?
We're good.
Okay. All right, so I'll move this to the agenda for actually later tonight.
We need a motion and a vote.
Yeah, is there a motion to move this to the agenda?
I move.
Both seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, Street and Alley. Chairman Fonte.
Thank you. So we have Zion Church and St. Paul's with a few alleys surrounding their properties. And there's been discussion and approval from all the parties that are interested in vacating the alleys. There's 3 of them. It would be Alley 8, 37, and 61. In your paperwork, there's an attached plat that would show you that. Now, some of the information here says that we're waiting on the signed recommendation from the parties involved, and Pat told me that we officially got that, I believe, today. And so the alleys are in pretty bad shape, so I think if we vacate them, are we responsible for them anymore?
No.
I like that, because I'd say that'd have to be on our hit list next, because they need it. Anyhow, I move that if we don't have any big concerns, that all parties are in agreement, we have it in writing, I move that we move this to the agenda.
Full seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
We will also need to set a public hearing, but because we did get the petitions today, the public hearing can be next week. We don't have to wait 6 weeks because every abutting property owner has already expressed interest in this occurring.
Who would put that on the agenda? Do we want to call that tonight sometime, or do we want to get that on the schedule for a date for a public hearing?
Yeah, so the earliest we could do would be next week. I do still have to invite the property owners to it, but we don't have to wait 6 weeks anymore.
But all
Sounds
the
good.
property owners are in favor.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
And there are only 2 property owners.
yes.
okay, do it next week then.
Thank you.
Everyone was in favor, so that will move to the agenda. All right, thank you, Dom. Next up, water, sewer, and rubbish. Chairman Soretta.
Soretta, Rob can go further in this. This is a block grant. I'm sure we don't want to turn away any money that Rob has worked harder for us to get. But go ahead, Rob, and explain what all this is.
Yeah, exactly. This is, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the second of our 2 grants we received, $250,000 last year and $250,000 this year for Pittsburgh projects. This is part 2. We'd go from the Corp line and we'd go north to not quite Ronell Circle, and then we'd also replace our line on Batten. We were lucky to get a $249,950 CDBG grant. The monies would be available later this summer once the commissioners get their check from HUD. And we just have the example agreement identical to last year's and other CDBG ones to go ahead and move forward with that, please.
Get this on emergency to get it?
Yeah, just to get it back to the commissioners,
moving
and
on.
they hope to have their money from HUD by July 1st. That way we can get this thing bid and get it completed this year.
Okay, good stuff.
Efficient government.
Yep. I move that we put this on the agenda.
Story seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, that concludes the committee of the whole.
Excuse me, Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. Rob, would you go back to the vacation plat?
Yes.
I have a copy of the map in front of me, and is that Church Street? Is that correct, that label? I'm looking at the map. It's labeled Church Street with Rose Court and Woodland. Maybe I'm not
I
oriented properly.
believe that is correct.
That is correct?
It's just a weird little configuration
Yeah.
between all their properties.
But it's called Church Street?
Yeah, behind the church. I think the
Okay,
east-west
all
street
right,
is
very
church.
good.
I believe it is.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, thank you. I'm ready to make a motion in a second that we adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Hold seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. All right. At this time, I'd like to call to order, haven't done that for a while.
Feel the power?
Yeah, I do, I feel the power.
Power goes right to your
Same at home with
Yeah,
a spoon.
yeah, exactly. All right, I'd like to call to order the North Canton Special Council Meeting, June 7th. Time is 7:44. Opening prayer. Mark, would you like to lead us? Would everyone please stand?
Bow your heads, please.
Lord, thank you for bringing us here, our first meeting back, and good to see everybody healthy and happy. Thank you for getting us through these tough times that we've had over a year ago, and it looks like everybody's made it through, and we thank you for all the work that you've done to help us out. Help us move forward with our agendas and help us to make this city a better place to live, work, and play. In God's name we pray.
Amen. Everyone please remain standing. Thank you. Ben, call the roll, please.
Member Revolt,
Here.
Member Fonte. Here. Member Soretta.
Here.
Member Peters.
Here.
Member Foltz.
Here.
Member Warren.
Here.
And Member Schroyer.
Here.
7 present.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next up, recognition of the public. Is there anyone here tonight wish to address council? Brad?
Come on, Brad.
I know you got something to say.
It's been a whole year, Brad.
Okay, you had your chance. Don't say I didn't give you one.
Right.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to old business. May I have a motion and a second to read by title only Resolution 10-21?
Story moves.
Waring
Revolt
seconds.
seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
A resolution for the submission of the question of the renewal and increase of a tax levy for the purpose of providing additional funds for the city's portion of ambulance service, emergency medical service, or both in the city of North Canton, Stark County, Ohio.
Thank you. Chairwoman Warren.
Okay, we've talked about this a number of times, and we're just asking to put this on the ballot November 2nd, and I ask to adopt.
Both seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, may I have a motion and a second to read by title only Resolution 11-21?
Story moves.
Waring
Revolt
seconds.
seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
A resolution for the submission of the question of the renewal and increase of a tax levy for the purpose of providing additional funds for the city's portion of providing and maintaining fire apparatus or other fire equipment and appliances, and for the payment of permanent, part-time, volunteer firefighting personnel to operate the same, including the payment of any contributions required for such personnel under ORC Sections 145.48 or 742.34 in the city of North Canton, Stark County, Ohio.
All right, thank you. Chairwoman Warren.
Okay, again, we have discussed this numerous times for a need for this to be asked of the voters if they would like to support an increase in the tax levy for the purpose of funding fire.
Motion to approve the second reading.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, may I have a motion and a second to suspend Council Rule 24 to allow consideration of item 7A without a committee report?
Revolt moves.
Waring second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to read by title only Ordinance 44-21?
Story moves.
Waring second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
An ordinance authorizing the appropriation of funds of the city of North Canton to be appropriated for current expenses during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring the same to be an emergency.
All right. Chairwoman Warren.
Okay, we just discussed this, and there was additional $64,000 approximately for the new RAS system. Any other questions, concerns? If not, I move to adopt.
Both seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of council requiring 3 readings?
Story moves. Story
second.
seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, may I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 44-21 under suspension?
Waring moves.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, before we adjourn, Doug and I are not going to be present next Monday. We'll both be out of town. We need to have one more meeting for the final reading of Resolution 10 and 11-21.
Can we add it to the 21st?
Pat, what is your timetable? What would be ideal for you?
I guess I would really prefer that the attorneys can begin working on this sooner rather than later.
Later this week, then?
I mean, we'll bend to the wishes of council, but if it could be done before the 21st, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Okay, so.
So you'd rather have one this week and then not next Monday?
Well,
Correct, yeah.
I believe we only need 5 votes. So it,
You just need 5.
it has to be passed with a 2/3 majority, and 66% of 7 people would be 4.62, so 5 votes would be 2/3.
Yes, we're not going to have an emergency in the 3rd reading.
It can't be passed on emergency.
Can't be done on an emergency.
So he's leaving Wednesday, but I'm available.
Yeah, but then do we, but we're good next week. Do you still want us to do it next Monday?
I'm saying if we have 5 people Monday, there
Zoom
would
is
still, in
overtime.
theory, be enough votes to pass.
Okay, is everyone else going to be here on Monday? I will be here on Monday. Don? Mark?
Better be, you're running the meeting.
Yes.
Give me that gavel.
So how many,
Chomping at it. You could throw it at something. Yeah.
how many will be here?
Pardon me?
How many will be here? 5?
So we are okay then?
Jeff and Doug will not be here.
Are we in agreement with the 5?
Yeah, well, are the remaining 5 in agreement? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Go back to virtual, doesn't it?
Yeah, can't do that. I can listen in. Okay, well, never mind. No
Okay. so
additional
problem
meeting is
solved.
going to be needed.
And before we adjourn, I would, when the next, not this next meeting, this special meeting that you're setting up for,
We don't need a special meeting.
For the alley, you mean?
for the, whatever meeting that we just decided we were going to have.
On next Monday.
Yeah. Oh, it's next Monday?
Yeah, we don't need to.
5 votes next Monday. and
Oh,
regular.
perfect. Well, then, for next Monday, I'd also like to afterwards get an executive session scheduled to discuss imminent litigation. So if you would rather do it then or the following Monday, I'm okay with that too.
Okay, well,
If you want to get everybody there.
can I join in via Zoom on an executive session?
I would say not. I know it'll be challenged.
Okay.
Ben, what's the rule on that?
So the people attending by Zoom can no longer vote. So you could sit and listen, but you would not be permitted to vote on anything if a vote was held in
We don't
executive
vote
session.
anything on an executive session anyway.
The
No, we do
Avengers
not.
do it from different planets. We should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Different
Is he
galaxies.
counted as being present?
I'm going to have the
Ben.
ocean in my background. I don't know how many years.
Ben, is he counted as being present?
No.
Ben avoids confrontation. Or I avoid confrontation, Ben seeks it. But I'm good with it. And it's okay. I mean, it's not like, you know, you couldn't get caught up later even if you didn't
Yeah,
attend.
maybe later in
And-
the week you can catch us up.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
so that's fine. So the executive session, we'll do Monday then.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Last chance.
So next on the 14th
All
is
right.
executive session?
Good, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Foltz moves.
We're in second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.